Yesterday, we talked about the five khandha or the five aggregates. This morning, we are going to talk about paticca samuppada or dependent origination, which is the related matter. The topic that we have been discussing since from the first morning is why Dhamma. We come to study Dhamma and learn about Dhamma because we would like to know about the law of nature, which is related to life. The five khandha or the five aggregates is the law of nature, and also paticca samuppada or dependent origination is the law of nature, which is related to life. The five aggregates or the five khandha is about the burden of life. Paticca samuppada or dependent origination manifests to us that when we say it is a burden of life, what do we mean about this word, burden? How is it that we say it is so heavy? How is it that it's so related to life? If we would like to compare or to say in a metaphor, the five khandha or the five aggregates can compare to the fetters, and paticca samuppada or dependent origination is the relation between the fetters and how it has been tied to the legs. The word truan that Thanachan mentioned and I translated as fetters, Thanachan has corrected that it means the iron chain. The iron chain which is put to the legs or the ankles of the prisoners, that we can compare to the five khandha or the five aggregates. Paticca means depends on each other. After it depends on each other, and then it conditions things. So we can compare to the iron chain, of which connected into rings, ring after rings. And so the way that paticca samuppada arises or conditions, it conditions in the same way of the iron chain that connected one after one another. When there is the five aggregates or the five khandha, it means or it can compare that now iron chain has been arisen or has been occurred. And so paticca samuppada or dependent origination, when it has been arisen, we can say that it has been arisen in the same way as the iron chain that has already happened. On the night of Lord Buddha's enlightenment, Lord Buddha contemplated on paticca samuppada or dependent origination all through the night, until at last he could absolutely enlightened to the end of paticca samuppada or dependent origination. About the time of the early dawn in the morning, it seems to be the same time as now we are listening or talking about Dhamma like now. Lord Buddha contemplated first from the result of the chain, that is about dukkha or sufferings. He contemplated one by one, beginning from the dukkha, until at last he discovered the cause of the dukkha, and thus it is avijja or ignorance. And then Lord Buddha contemplated on the reverse one, from avijja to dukkha, and from dukkha to avijja, until he realized that very convincingly how things depends upon things, and then it happens in this way. So at last, or later on, Lord Buddha said, anybody who realizes paticca samuppada, or who can see paticca samuppada or dependent origination, that person sees Dhamma, and who sees Dhamma, that person sees me. Me means Lord Buddha. So, seeing Dhamma, it means be able to see Lord Buddha and paticca samuppada or dependent origination at the same time. So I should like all our friends just try to think more about the time of the enlightenment of Lord Buddha. It is the time, just about this, about 5 o'clock early in the morning. How much is so meaningful. So that's why you are requested to the meeting at this hour of the day. Now we are going to talk about the 5 khandha or 5 aggregates and paticca samuppada or dependent origination, as they are related as one story or one thing. So I should like all of you, please try to recall or remind your memory about the 5 khandha or the 5 aggregates that we have talked yesterday morning. If you still understand or have clearly understanding about the 5 khandha and the 5 aggregates, it will be very much helpful to the understanding of paticca samuppada or dependent origination, of which we are going to discuss about it this morning. Simple principle that we should bear in mind is about the first aggregate or the first khandha, that is about rupa khandha or body. Usually, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind are already exist, of which we call sense organs. And then there are the sense objects, of which are the pairs to the sense organs. They are sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought. The inner sense organs and the outer sense organs, these 5 pairs, are called rupa khandha, rupa khandha or the body. When these 2 pairs or when these pairs depend on each other, after that arising vijnana khandha or consciousness. After the dependent from or with Rupa Khan, and then Vijnana Khan, consciousness, followed the arising of Vedana Khan or the feelings. After that, arising the Sanya Khan or perception. After perception or Sanya Khan, arising the feeling of conceiving, and it is the conception of which is the last aggregate or the last khandha. So there are all 5 khandha altogether: body, consciousness, feelings, perception, and conception. Now we shall begin to discuss about all these things, the 5 aggregates, in the form of Paticca Samuppada or dependent origination. It depends or it arising one after one, and so after we follow the explanation or the discussion, we'll see how it connected one after one another. Please make a close observation to see or to realize that in fact it is the thing that happens in our daily life, sometimes many times a day. We do have ear, eye, nose, tongue, body and mind in our everyday life. And also the outer sense object or the outer sense organ, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought. All these 6 things arising all around us in everyday life also. But usually all human beings always ignore all these things, ignore about the 6 sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, and also ignore the outer sense organs, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought. We ignore them because they are arising or occurring naturally all the time. And because of this feeling of ignorance, it is the cause of the thing of which we call ignorance. We should have noticed or realized the fact that whether we do ignore it or whether we don't ignore it, all these things function all the time. Let us study every pair of them, but we shall study one pair after another. The first pair is eye and form or eye and sight. If we have the right understanding about the work or the function of the first pair, we understand its work or its functions clearly, then it is very possible that we shall understand the rest of the pairs very clearly in the same way. When the eye depends on the form or the sight, there is the seeing, of which we shall use the word eye consciousness functions. So you will see that there are 3 things working together: the eye, the form or the sight, and the eye consciousness. The dependence among all these 3 things, or the interdependence among all these 3 things, eye, sight or form, and eye consciousness, contact or it conditions the contact or phassa. When the contact arises, we may use the ordinary language as the seeing the contact, but in Dhamma language or in Dependent Origination language, we'll say that there is the interdependent work among all these three things: I, form or sight, and I, consciousness. When contact arises, at the point of the contact, please notice that this is the most significant point or the most significant thing. If when contact arises and there is no wisdom arising or followed, then the contact will become ignorant contact. But if the person has studied or obtained the knowledge about all these things, so when the contact arises, it will become wise contact. So you may notice that the result of the wise contact or the ignorant contact has affected entirely different. If it is ignorant contact, it will lead to dukkha or sufferings. But if it becomes the wise contact, it will lead to the result of no dukkha or no sufferings at all. So in this case, suppose the contact is ignorant contact. It will condition ignorant vedana or ignorant or ignorant feeling. So the contact condition vedana, ignorant contact condition ignorant vedana or ignorant feeling. At the point of the feeling or vedana, it will arise two meanings or two things. One, it might be positive, the other one might be negative. So, ignorant contact or ignorant mind will cling to the vedana as positive vedana or negative vedana. But if the mind is wise, a wise mind, the mind will see things as it be, nothing more than that. The mind would not see it as negative or positive, but merely as it be. When feeling or vedana is ignorant, it conditions the desire to be ignorant also. The desire that might become the ignorant desire, it is because the vedana or feeling is ignorant. If the feeling or vedana is not ignorant, is a wise one, then the desire or the tanha will not be ignorant. If vedana or feeling is ignorant, it conditions the desire, the ignorant desire. But if vedana is not ignorant, it is wise vedana or feeling, then the tanha or the desire is not ignorant, it will become wise. And in this sense, we won't use the word tanha or desire, but we will use the word aspiration, because it is the wise want. If the desire is ignorant, it will condition upadhan or attachment. It is the attachment or the clinging of the mind. The mind will cling to that so tightly, and this is ignorant upadhan, or it is the clinging upadhan. Please notice that attachment, ignorant attachment, arising from ignorant desire. If it is not ignorant, since the contact arises, there is no ignorance involved, then there would not be attachment, or ignorant attachment cannot arise. When there is attachment or ignorant attachment arising, it conditions the thing that is called thought or becoming. And this is the starting point of the conceiveness, or it is the starting point of the conception of the self, of having the self or of being the self. If we study it deeply and more carefully, we shall realize that at the point of upadhana or attachment, it is the real starting point of the conception of self, and it conditions thought or the becoming of being or having the self. When the thought or the becoming has getting stronger, if we say in ordinary language, it grows older, but it means it gets stronger. The feeling of becoming, of having the self or being the self, gets stronger. It conditions the chati or the birth, and this is the birth of the atta, A-T-T-A, the atta or the self in full bloom. I should like to refer to the picture if my friends, some of my friends that have seen the picture of the dependent origination. On the point of the thought or becoming, the illustrator has illustrated a picture to represent the thought or the becoming of the pregnant woman. And so, if we would like to compare about the becoming or the thought, it's like when the pregnancy has come to the right time, and so the mother or the woman will give birth to an infant. And this we can compare that when the feeling of becoming, of having or being the self gets stronger or older, so it conditions the birth of the feeling of having the atta, or it conditions the chati or the birth of the atta or the self in full bloom inside in the mind. The mind will cling to the having of the self or the atta arising in the mind immediately. So you will see that this kind of self that has been born, it is the ignorant self, because it derives from the cause of ignorance, one by one. And this kind of birth is not the physical birth, but it is the spiritual birth, the birth of the feeling of atta or the self. And if we shall observe the daily activities that are arising in the mind, this kind of spiritual birth, the birth of the self or the birth of the atta, arising in the mind, most of the time of the day. When the self is ignorant self, or the soul is ignorant soul, so it functions ignorantly. It takes everything involves as belonging to me or mine. It takes everything as being possessed by the I or the me. It takes all the world to belong to me. And this is the point that dukkha or suffering arises. It is heavy. It is a burden. What we call the burden or heaviness of life is dukkha. To speak simply or to put it shortly, in fact, positiveness or negativeness are part of nature. There are positiveness or negativeness in the nature, but the ignorant mind or the ignorant self or soul will take all these things or regard all these things as mine or mine. And when it regards or takes all things as mine, all these things becomes burden of life, and this is dukkha. In fact, disappointment or expectations or getting things as one wants are part of nature. All these things happen in the nature every day, but the ignorant mind or ignorant self or soul takes all disappointments or gaining or getting things as they want, as mine, belong to me. And so it has caused lots of troubles, disturbance to life. And this is, again, we call it is dukkha. Sometimes the person may feel so happy, so glad. Sometimes may feel so sad, so sorry, so downhearted. In fact, even though in the same case, but looking in different aspects or in different angles, some may feel happy, satisfied, and laugh heartily. But looking in different angles, the other one may feel so sorry, so sad, so downhearted, even crying or weeping. Some things, according to the natural happenings, or they already happen every day according to the law of nature, such as birth, old age, sickness, and death. These are the work or part of the nature, but the ignorant self will cling to these things as mine. My birth, my old age, my sickness, my death, considered or taking everything as mine, and so this clinging or attaching because of ignorance has caused dukkha to the mind. There are many examples if we would like to cite it, but I should like to conclude in one story, that in one thing, in one matter, that is about gaining or losing. In fact, gaining or losing is a matter of nature, but the ignorant mind will take it as mine and becomes in dukkha. The starting point begins when the eye depends on the form or the sight, and then it conditions one after another until at last it conditions the self, the ignorant self. It is really a long streamline, a stream of dependent origination or paticca samuppada. The characteristics of the long stream of dependent origination or paticca samuppada can compare to the ring of chains. It begins at the point of sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, and its pairs: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought. And then it conditions the contact. The contact conditions the feeling or vedana, and the feeling or vedana conditions tanha or desire. The desire or tanha conditions upadana or attachment, and attachment or upadana conditions bhava or becoming, and then bhava or becoming condition chati or birth, and at last the result of all of this long stream of ignorance is dukkha. What is very strange or very amazing to all of us is that all these things happen all the time, or it conditions one after another with ignorance. And human beings never realize this, always ignore the natural happenings that really happens in life. What they know is laughing or crying. That's why ignorant mind does not know how to control all these happenings, and at last let it cause dukkha in the mind. We may study the stream of dependent origination or paticca samuppada from the example of the eye. Depends on the form or the sight, as we have cited the example from the beginning to the end. So we may take this as an example of studying what happens to the eyes, or how the eyes condition the form until it conditions the ignorant self. When it happens to the ear, depend on the sound, or the nose depends on the smell, or the tongue depends on the taste, the body depends on the touch, and the mind depends on the thought. It will condition on the same way along this line. And you may notice that there are altogether 6 ways. That is, the contacts may come through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And so there are so many attractiveness that will challenge all these 6 sense organs to condition to them in an ignorant way. And so that's why in this world it's so full of contacts. And if the mind becomes ignorant, it will be without awareness of wisdom or reality, and then it will become victims to the contact and end up in dukkha. So the matter of paticca samuppada or dependent origination is nothing else except it is a matter of our own self. But in the aspect of spirituality, it does not concern physicality or mentality, but it emphasizes on the point of spirituality. Is there anybody of us knows ourselves in this way? That is, realize that we have been trapped in the stream of dependent origination or paticca samuppada all day. Is there any of us realize this truth of life? If anybody knows or realizes in this way, we can say that that person knows, understands, and realizes the matter of paticca samuppada or dependent origination. In fact, it is a matter of how does dukkha arise and how does dukkha quench. It is the matter of nature. So, to speak shortly, dependent origination or paticca samuppada, it is a matter of dukkha and how to quench dukkha, of which it is a matter of nature or the work of nature. This matter about dukkha and how to quench dukkha is very, very important, very significant, very much to Lord Buddha himself, because the cause of his ordination, of Lord Buddha's ordination, or the ultimate aim of his ordination is to try to discover about the thing of which we call dukkha. He tried to contemplate what is the cause of dukkha. To begin with, what is dukkha? What is the cause of dukkha? And how to quench dukkha. He spent 6 years to discover this truth, and at last, on the night of his enlightenment, he discovered this truth about dependent origination or paticca samuppada. He did realize how does dukkha arise and how to quench dukkha. And after his enlightenment on that night, he kept on repeating to contemplate on this matter for 7 days. And so we'll see that the story or the matter of dependent origination or paticca samuppada is so significant and meaningful to life of all people. That's why Lord Buddha said, anybody who can see or realize paticca samuppada or the law of dependent origination, that one can see Dhamma. Anybody who can see Dhamma can see me. Me means Lord Buddha. After his enlightenment about dependent origination or paticca samuppada, Lord Buddha considered that this matter about dependent origination is very, very difficult. It is very profound, very subtle matter. So it is very, very hard indeed to make people or human beings to understand and to realize this reality. And so at first he made up his mind that it wouldn't be any use at all to teach dependent origination or paticca samuppada to human beings. But later on, after reconsidering it, Lord Buddha felt that there might be some people, even though not every people to be able to understand, but there might be some people who would be wise enough to understand and get into the heart of this dependent origination. If he would not teach about this dependent origination, then some may lose the chance. Some wise people may lose the chance to study and understand this significant matter of life. So at last, he decided to teach about dependent origination or paticcasamuppada to some people who would be wise enough to understand. So we do hope that among all my friends, there might be some of you who are wise enough, interested enough to pay attention to the study and try to understand the matter or the story about paticcasamuppada or dependent origination. Because of the importance of dependent origination or paticcasamuppada, so even though Lord Buddha had enlightened about this reality or this truth, there are many times later on when Lord Buddha has spare time, he would recite about paticcasamuppada from the beginning to the end. Asท่านอาจารย์ just cited to you for an example just a moment ago, it is like somebody or some of us, when we feel good, we would sing song or play music, and so Lord Buddha would recite paticcasamuppada or dependent origination, a long stream from the beginning till the end. Is ignorance conditioned sankhara, that means mental formations, and sankhara conditioned vijnana, consciousness. Vijnana conditioned namarup, body mind, and namarup, body mind conditioned ayatana, sense organs. Ayatana, sense organs conditioned contact or phassa. Contact or phassa condition vedana. Vedana or feelings condition tanha or desire. Desire or tanha condition upadhan or attachment. Upadhan or attachment condition pop or becoming. And pop or becoming condition chati or birth, and at last end up in dukkha. And then he would recite the reverse cause from dukkha, why dukkha arises, until it will reach to the cause because of ignorance. See, this just to show to you or tell you that how important of the story of dependent origination of paticcasamuppada to all human beings, that we should try to learn and study it more carefully, consistently, until we do realize about the truth of it. One day, while Lord Buddha was reciting about paticcasamuppada or dependent origination, Lord Buddha thought he was alone by himself, but there was one monk who just stayed around, and when Lord Buddha saw him, Lord Buddha called the monk to him and said, just recite this about paticcasamuppada or dependent origination. Take it, study it, investigate it into the truth of it, because this is it of which we can say it is the starting point of religious practice. If anybody wants to practice Dhamma, to do the Dhamma practice, this is it. We have to start or to begin with the practice of dependent origination or paticca samuppada. Now we shall study and try to understand the relation between the five khandha or the five aggregates to paticca samuppada or dependent origination. Sense organs and sense objects, or the other way to say, we say inner sense organs and outer sense organs are rupa khandha or the first khandha, the first aggregate or body. When inner sense organs depend on outer sense organs, conditioned vijnana khandha or consciousness, and vijnana khandha or consciousness is the second khandha or the second aggregate. When vijnana khandha or consciousness arises, it conditions the contact or phassa, and contact or phassa conditioned vedana or feeling, and this vedana or feeling in paticca samuppada or dependent origination, in fact it is also the vedana khandha or the third aggregate or the third khandha, of which we call vedana khandha or feeling. When vedana or feeling arising, before it conditions the desire or the tanha, there is some of the idea, some if the feeling of perceiving something before it conditions tanha, and that is the fixed idea. There is the fixed idea arising in the mind. This we can say it is sanya khandha or perception. After sanya khandha or perception, that is the fourth aggregate arising in the mind between vedana and tanha. When I say between, I should put it more clear that it is the work in the vedana. When vedana arising in the mind, there is some idea, some feeling of conceiving arising in the mind, and it causes the perception or sanya khandha, the fourth aggregate. And it is this is it that conditions tanha or desire. After that, after vedana condition tanha or desire, the rest from tanha or desire, upadana or attachment, bhava or becoming, chati or birth, these are included in sankhara khandha or the last five aggregates, that is conception, which is the last aggregate or the last khandha. Even dukkha itself can be included in this aggregate also. Concerning the khandha, there are five khandha or five aggregates. But when talking about paticca samuppada or dependent origination, there are 12 steps or 12 parts altogether. But they are one. You understand this? They are one. Once we understand about the five khandha or the five aggregates thoroughly, we shall certainly understand paticca samuppada or dependent origination thoroughly also. So please know and understand the five khandha or the five aggregates that happens in everyday life, existing and vanishing, nothing more than that, rising and falling, existing and vanishing, these five khandha. If the mind is ignorant, then it will grasp through the five khandha as real, as mine, and then it will become burden of life. And then one day the person becomes wiser, realize that, it's merely that, as it be, it's not real. So just throw it away, throw them away. When we say throw it away, it means throw the feeling of clinging, the feeling of attaching away, and then life will become light and blissful. When we say throw away the five khandhas, it means throw away the feeling of attaching to the five aggregates. It does not mean that we throw the five aggregates away. We don't mean we throw the material things. They're still having it, still being as it be, but throw away the feeling of attaching, the feeling of clinging, the feeling of satisfying, of having or being. Throw that feeling away. And after throwing the feeling of attaching away, the five khandha or the five aggregates still exist according to the nature, because it's part of nature. So in throwing this way, life is still continue. People still being alive, but this time it is very light, very blissful, very clear. There is no dukkha. To speak more concisely, throw away life without dying. We still alive, we don't die. When we throw away the feeling of attaching or clinging, life still continues. But just throwing away the feeling of attaching, and then we still alive, but this time it is life without dukkha, without burden. The five aggregates or the five khandha is a burden. It is a burden because of attachment. After throwing it away, throwing the feeling of attaching away, the person will never cling to anything anymore. If the feeling of attaching or clinging has absolutely cleared out, of course the person will become the perfected one, Arahanta. The five aggregates is a burden. And when we come to study Paticca Samuppada or Dependent Origination, helps us to realize how does dukkha arise, or how does the burden of life arise, and how to quench it. And so, if anybody can make the dukkha quench, or can quench the dukkha forever, never let it happen again. This is the knowledge of Paticca Samuppada or Dependent Origination. And so these two things are related together. The five aggregates is the dukkha because of the attachment, and Paticca Samuppada or Dependent Origination manifests to us how does dukkha arise and how to quench dukkha. Anybody who has a clear knowledge and understanding about these two things, that is five khandha, about the five khandha, and about paticca samuppada, that person really knows about the Four Noble Truths, because the person will know what is dukkha, what is the cause of dukkha, what is the cessation of dukkha, and what is the path leading to the quenching of dukkha, and this is the Four Noble Truths. Therefore, the matter about the five khandha or five aggregates, paticca samuppada or the law of dependence, Ariya Satsi or the Four Noble Truths, it is the matter concerning dukkha and how to quench dukkha. Coming to think carefully and mindfully, we'll see for ourselves what is it in the world that will be so valuable as this, to know about dukkha and how to quench dukkha, because it is the thing that all people are confronting with it in everyday life. So this kind of knowledge, and anybody who can obtain such knowledge and understanding and practice accordingly, we can say this is a new life. We are having or possessing a new life, very valuable life. After we have studied, after we try to put it into practice, we shall realize that, in fact, it is nothing special. It is really very ordinary things that happens in life. It is part of nature. But we must learn how to get rid of all of these problems, of which bringing dukkha to life. Therefore, talking about the five khandha or five aggregates, dependent origination or paticca samuppada, or Four Noble Truths or Ariya Satsi. When talking about these three things, or about other dhamma that we have not mentioned here, if we study all these dhamma carefully, we shall notice that every of each item of the dhamma will tell us only one thing, that is about dukkha. What is dukkha? What is the cause of dukkha? What is the cessation of dukkha? And what is the path that will lead to the quenching of dukkha? If we want to go into details, we may divide in 4 items. If we put it shorter, there will only 2 things to bear in mind. That is about dukkha. What are the characteristics of dukkha and how to quench dukkha? Or at last, if we really want to say it in short, there is only one word: how to quench dukkha. This is it. This is the thing that we need to do in life. That is how to quench dukkha. So life will become life without problems or beyond problems. Life is sufferings. If we think in this way, life is suffering, but it is nature. The cause of sufferings, again, it is nature. So what human beings should do or ought to do is learn to practice or learn to perform one's own function according to the law of nature. Then life will be beyond dukkha and the cause of dukkha. So when coming to study about Dhamma, why Dhamma? It is because we need to learn about Dhamma in all meanings, all aspects of Dhamma, that is about the nature, the law of nature, and to perform functions according to the law of nature, until at last we shall be able to attain life of which is really beyond all problems or all kinds of dukkha. If there is a question where to study about the dukkha or how to study about the dukkha, for the question where to study or what to study, the recommendation or suggestion is to study this body that is still alive, the body that is just 1 fathom long, not very large, not very difficult. We don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to find any school. We don't need to study even in the Buddhist scripture. But it is very necessary and very important to study this life, this body. If we can study and understand it so clearly, thoroughly, this is it. We have succeeded in study Dhamma. We have completed the study of Dhamma. Lord Buddha has confirmed his teaching that what he would teach, there is nothing else except dukkha and how to quench dukkha. So the knowledge or the understanding about dukkha and how to quench dukkha is the essence of Buddhism. If you succeed in practicing anapanasati or mindfulness, of course, you will certainly complete your study about Dhamma, that is about the dukkha and how to quench dukkha. So, I should like to ask or request all of you, please put all the efforts in the practice. If we can complete the practice of anapanasati, the result will be satisfied or satisfaction. And it is worth of your coming here. To stay here, to spend your time here, it will certainly worth of coming. To practice anapanasati will assist us to be able to have sati or mindfulness, panya or wisdom, samadhi or concentration, sampajanya, attentiveness or attentiveness in action. And we shall all know whatever Dhamma there are in this world, it will be together in the practice of anapanasati. Thank you for your kind attention, being very good listeners, and we come to the end of the meeting. Thank you.